Charleston sits on a narrow peninsula where the Ashley and Cooper Rivers meet Charleston Harbor, an inlet of the Atlantic on the South Carolina coast. The city itself holds just over 150,000 people, which makes it smaller than most visitors expect from its reputation. The wider metro area, spanning Berkeley, Charleston, and Dorchester counties, runs closer to 870,000 residents. That makes it the third largest metro in South Carolina and the 71st largest in the United States. The peninsula is the part you came for. It is low, flat, and compact enough to cross on foot in well under an hour. That geography is the single most useful fact about visiting here. Almost everything historic sits inside a walkable grid. Our data rates Charleston very walkable overall, and the walking times back that up. Rainbow Row is about 7 minutes on foot from the center, the Battery roughly 14. If you are driving in, Columbia is the closest major city at about 2 hours and 10 minutes, covering 114 miles. Savannah is a very similar trip, 2 hours and 15 minutes across 107 miles of coastal highway. Charlotte is the next tier out, 3 hours and 25 minutes over 209 miles. Atlanta is a full 5-hour drive, 319 miles, which puts Charleston within reach of a long weekend for most of the Southeast. So who is this actually for? Charleston rewards travelers who want history, architecture, and food in a small, dense, walkable package. It suits couples and food-focused visitors particularly well, and the restaurant depth is unusual for a city this size. Our data set holds 181 restaurants and 96 landmarks for a city of 150,000 people. Families are well served too, though the marquee family attractions sit outside the peninsula and need a car. Now the honest part, because this city gets sold hard and the weaknesses are real. Charleston scores 58 out of 100 on our overall safety measure, with both petty and violent crime rated moderate. That is not alarming for a U.S. city of this size, but it is not the sleepy postcard the marketing implies either. Public transport is the bigger practical weakness. Our data rates bus quality poor, and there is no rail transit at all. Flooding is the structural issue. Roughly 81% of buildings in the city sit at flood risk on a peninsula surrounded by water. Hurricane season runs June through November, and it overlaps exactly with the hottest and wettest stretch of the year. On trip length, 3 to 4 days covers the peninsula properly without rushing the museums or the food. Stretch to a week if you want the plantations, the beaches, and a day on one of the sea islands. A single weekend works, but you will be choosing between the historic core and everything outside it. Charleston International Airport carries the code CHS and functions as a major domestic hub, which keeps competition on most routes. Fares in our data span a wide band. The cheapest sampled fares land near $110. The average sits around $365, and the high end reaches well past $1,400. That spread is mostly seasonal. Booking into the spring and fall peaks is what pushes you toward the top of that range. The airport sits about 16 miles from the historic district by road, a drive of roughly 35 minutes without traffic. A metered taxi from the airport to the historic district runs about $29 to $34 at current rates. A shared shuttle bus leaves roughly every 15 minutes at around $14 to $15 per person, though multiple stops make it slower. Uber and Lyft both operate here, and for 2 or more people, they usually undercut the shuttle. There is also a CARTA bus from the airport, which is by far the cheapest option and by far the slowest at close to 50 minutes. Our own data carries 2 different fares for that route, so treat the exact number as unconfirmed and check ridecarta.com before you rely on it. Once you are in the city, the transit picture splits in 2, and this is the part most guides get wrong. The paid network is CARTA, the regional bus system. A single ride runs about $3.50 at current rates. A day pass is around $7, a week pass around $15, and a monthly pass about $57. The free network is Dash, a downtown shuttle that costs nothing and covers the historic district. For a typical 3-day visit staying downtown, Dash plus walking handles most of your movement at 0 transit cost. That matters because our data rates the paid bus network poor for quality, so you are not missing much by skipping it. There is no metro, no light rail, and no commuter train inside the city. 0 rail lines by our count. Amtrak does reach Charleston, despite what a lot of online sources claim. The station is in North Charleston. The Silver Meteor and Palmetto lines both stop there, connecting north to New York and south towards Savannah and Miami. Fares run roughly $30 to $150 and up depending on distance and class, so confirm current pricing at amtrak.com. Intercity buses cover the regional corridors. Greyhound, Flixbus, and Southeastern stages all serve Charleston. The main routes run to Columbia, Charlotte, Savannah, and Atlanta, which mirrors the drive times we just walked through. Now the car question, which is the real decision for most visitors staying downtown. Our verdict is optional and leaning toward unnecessary if you are staying on the Peninsula and skipping the Plantations. An economy rental runs about $55 a day, roughly $320 for a week. Parking is what changes the math. Central parking runs around $2.50 an hour and about $20 a day. A monthly central space is roughly $150, which tells you how constrained Peninsula parking really is. The driving itself is the other argument against it. The historic Peninsula is narrow, one-way, and partly cobblestoned. Traffic across the Arthur Ravenel Jr. Bridge backs up regularly, which matters if you are staying in Mount Pleasant. Gas runs about $3.60 a gallon in our data, so the Plantation day trips are cheap to fuel. Our recommendation is simple. Skip the car if you are downtown for 3 days, and rent one for a single day if you want the Plantations. Taxis are metered here rather than negotiated, starting around $2.50 with roughly $2.80 per mile after that. Bikes and scooters are available for rent, but our data rates bike safety mixed, so pick your streets carefully. One option worth knowing is the water route. Ferries run from Liberty Square out to Fort Sumter, which is the only way to reach it. Charleston lodging is expensive relative to the city's size, and the tier spread is wide enough to matter. Budget properties average about $105 a night in our sampled data. Mid-range runs around $156, and that is the tier most visitors actually book. Upscale averages $247, and the luxury tier jumps to roughly $418 a night. Those hotel figures come from live rate sampling and are the most reliable lodging numbers we hold. We deliberately have no Airbnb median for Charleston, and it is worth saying why, rather than quoting a number we do not trust. The short-term rental data we pulled turned out to be affiliate listings priced for other cities, so we retracted it rather than publish it. Use the hotel tiers as your planning anchor. If you want a rental, price it yourself and compare against that mid-range figure. A hostel dorm bed runs about $35, which is one of the few cheap beds left on the peninsula. Now the zones, because in Charleston, the neighborhood decision matters more than the hotel decision. The French Quarter is the strongest all-round base and scores highest in our neighborhood data. It is a compact, gallery-filled corner of the old walled city with cobblestone streets, historic churches, and the Dock Street Theater. You are central and atmospheric here, inside easy walking distance of the waterfront, the market, and most of the historic houses. The trade-off is price and noise. This is the most in-demand pocket downtown, and rates reflect that. Cannonborough Elliott Borough, just off Upper King Street, is the food-focused alternative, an up-and-coming quarter of independent restaurants, coffee shops, and small boutique inns. Stay here if eating is the point of your trip. You are a short walk from the densest restaurant cluster in the city. The trade-off is that you are further from the harbor sites, adding 10 to 15 minutes of walking to most of the historic core. Harleston Village is the quiet option, a leafy residential quarter near Colonial Lake and the College of Charleston. It is calm and pretty, still within easy walking distance of downtown, and generally cheaper than the French Quarter. The trade-off is atmosphere. It is a neighborhood people live in, rather than one that entertains you at night. Mount Pleasant sits across the Cooper River and is the family and value pick rather than a downtown alternative. It offers waterfront parks, the Shem Creek seafood and boat scene, and the closest access to the Sullivan's Island beaches. The trade-off is the bridge. You are committing to a drive or a long ride into the historic district every day. On specific properties, the Charleston Place is the strongest reviewed large hotel downtown at 4.7 from around 2,500 reviews. Hotel Bennett and the Dewberry both sit at 4.6 and anchor the upper end of the market. The Francis Marion and the Mills House both hold 4.3 across roughly 2,500 reviews each in the historic core. For families, the Embassy Suites in Mount Pleasant rates 4.4 and puts you near the waterfront parks. One zone to think carefully about is North Charleston. It is cheaper, and the airport hotels cluster there. But you are roughly 16 miles from the historic district with poor bus service, so the savings get eaten by rideshare fares. If you are staying a month or longer, furnished one-bedroom rentals run about $2,000, with short-term leases from $2,000 to $4,500. Charleston is known first for its preserved historic core, and that core is small enough to see almost entirely on foot. Start with the Charleston City Market, the busiest single attraction in our data, with close to 28,000 reviews. It runs several blocks through the middle of downtown and is where the Sweetgrass Basket Weavers, a Gullah Geechee tradition, still sell their work. Rainbow Row is the row of pastel merchant houses on East Bay Street, about 7 minutes on foot from the center. It holds 4.6 from more than 7,000 reviews, and it takes about 10 minutes to see. Manage your expectations. Waterfront Park is the better stop nearby, rating 4.7 from over 11,000 reviews, open from 7 in the morning until 9:30 at night. The Pineapple Fountain sits inside it, is free, and is open around the clock if you want it without the crowds. White Point Garden anchors the southern tip of the peninsula, about 13 minutes walk from the center, with oaks and Civil War artillery. The Battery is the seawall promenade beside it, roughly 14 minutes out, and it is where the harbor views actually are. Marion Square is the northern counterpart, a public green at the top of King Street that anchors the shopping and restaurant district. For house museums, Charleston has an unusual concentration, and they are the best way to understand how the city was actually built. The Nathaniel Russell House is the closest to the center at about 5 minutes walk, rating 4.6. The Old Exchange and Provost Dungeon is 7 minutes out, rates 4.7, and covers the colonial and revolutionary period. The Aikenrett House is the one to pick if you only do one, because it is preserved rather than restored. The Hayward Washington House and the Joseph Manigault House fill out the set if you want a full architecture day. The single most important museum here is the International African American Museum, rating 4.8. It stands on the site of Gadsden's Wharf, where a large share of enslaved Africans first arrived in North America. Admission runs about $20, it opens at 10, and it is closed on Mondays, which trips up a lot of visitors. The Old Slave Mart Museum covers the same history at closer range, in a building where enslaved people were actually sold. Charleston's wealth was built on that trade, and these two museums are the reason the city's history reads as more than architecture. The Charleston Museum calls itself America's first museum and holds 4.6 from over 2,000 reviews. The Gibbes Museum of Art is the fine art option, rating 4.7, and it sits inside the historic core. For military and maritime history, Fort Sumter is the headline, rating 4.7 from more than 11,000 reviews. It is where the first shots of the Civil War were fired, and it is reachable only by boat from Liberty Square. Plan it as a half day. The ferry schedule, not the fort, is what sets your timing, and it opens at 8:30. Patriots Point across the harbor is the other major stop, rating 4.8 from over 7,000 reviews. The USS Yorktown is the centerpiece there, a World War II aircraft carrier you can walk through at about $28 admission. It opens at 10 and closes at 5, and a destroyer and a submarine are docked alongside it. Friends of the Hunley displays the first submarine to sink a warship in combat, and it rates 4.8. Be careful with that one. It opens only on weekends, Saturday, and Sunday, which is the most common scheduling mistake in this city. Outside the peninsula, the plantation sites are the other major draw, and they need a car or a tour. Magnolia Plantation and Gardens is the most visited, rating 4.5 from close to 10,000 reviews. Middleton Place rates highest of the three at 4.7 and holds the oldest landscaped gardens in the country. Boone Hall rates 4.6 from 7,000 reviews and is the one most people recognize from film. All three sit on former rice plantations, and how directly each one addresses slavery varies, so it is worth reading before you choose. Cypress Gardens is the quieter alternative, a blackwater swamp garden with boat tours and a butterfly house, about $15. The Angel Oak Tree on Johns Island is free, rates 4.7 from over 11,000 reviews, and has no real equivalent anywhere else. It stands over 60 feet tall with a canopy that spreads far wider than that. It opens at 9 and 1 in the afternoon on Sundays. For beaches, Folly Beach County Park is the closest proper beach, free to enter, open 8 to 8, with seasonal lifeguards. Folly Beach Pier is the landmark there, a 1,000-foot fishing pier rating 4.7 from over 5,000 reviews. Isle of Palms County Park is the second option, rating 4.7, and it is the more family-oriented of the two. Sullivan's Island is the third, quieter than both, and it carries Fort Moultrie for anyone combining beach and history. For parks, James Island County Park is the best value in the city at $2, rating 4.8. Hampton Park is the free option on the peninsula, rating 4.8, with floral displays and a walking loop. Palmetto Islands County Park runs 943 acres of trails and creeks for $1. The Lighthouse Inlet Heritage Preserve at the end of Folly Beach costs $1 and has a lighthouse, surf fishing, and birdwatching. Shem Creek Boardwalk in Mount Pleasant is free, rates 4.8, and is where the shrimp boats actually dock. The Mount Pleasant Pier stretches 1,250 feet with bench swings and harbor views at $2. Families have more here than the historic marketing suggests, and this is where a car earns its keep. The South Carolina Aquarium sits on the peninsula waterfront and rates 4.5 from over 8,000 reviews. The Children's Museum of the Lowcountry is the wet weather backup downtown, rating 4.4. James Island County Park also carries the Splash Zone Water Park, which solves a July afternoon better than any historic house will. For tours, the Old South Carriage Company is the most reviewed operator in the city, with nearly 32,000 reviews at 4.9. Carriage tours run from 9 in the morning to 9 at night, and they are the standard first-day orientation here. Charleston Music Hall is the main performance venue, a Gothic revival building rating 4.8, and the Dock Street Theater sits in the French Quarter. Now let us turn all of that into actual days, because the ordering matters more here than the list does. For history-focused travelers, 2 days covers the peninsula and the harbor properly, and the sequencing below keeps the walking down. Day 1 starts with a carriage tour at 9 for orientation, then the city market and Rainbow Row on foot before lunch downtown. Day 1 afternoon goes to the International African American Museum, which opens at 10 and closes at 5, so budget the back half of the day. Finish Day 1 walking south along East Bay to White Point Garden and the Battery for the late afternoon harbor light. Day 2 is the Fort Sumter morning. Book the first ferry from Liberty Square, since the fort opens at 8:30. Day 2 afternoon crosses to Patriots Point for the USS Yorktown, which closes at 5, then dinner in Mount Pleasant at Shem Creek. If you have a third day, add the Aiken Rhett House in the morning and the Old Exchange after lunch. For outdoor and beach travelers, the shape of the trip inverts, and you will want a car. Day 1 heads out to Folly Beach in the morning, which opens at 8, with the pier and the Lighthouse Inlet Preserve at the far end. Come back through James Island County Park in the afternoon for the trails, or the Splash Zone Water Park if the heat has won. On Day 2, drive to Johns Island for the Angel Oak when it opens at 9, before the tour buses arrive. Give the afternoon to Middleton Place or Magnolia Plantation for the gardens, then head back downtown for dinner. A third day belongs on Sullivan's Island, combining the quieter beach with Fort Moultrie and the Pitt Street Bridge at sunset. For families, split the trip between the Peninsula and Mount Pleasant so nobody spends 2 days looking at houses. Day 1 starts at the South Carolina Aquarium when it opens, then lunch on the waterfront and the Pineapple Fountain afterwards. Spend the afternoon at Waterfront Park, or swap in the Children's Museum of the Lowcountry if the weather turns. On day 2, cross the bridge to Patriots Point, where walking through the Yorktown lands better with children than any house museum. The Mount Pleasant Pier and Memorial Waterfront Park fill the afternoon at $2 and $8 respectively, with bench swings over the harbor. Finish at Shem Creek Boardwalk in the early evening, where the shrimp boats come in and dolphins turn up regularly. Charleston's food scene is the strongest single argument for visiting, and it is unusually deep for a city this size. The regional identity is Lowcountry cooking, built on rice, shrimp, oysters, and the Gullah Geechee traditions of the Sea Islands. The second thread is Carolina barbecue, which in South Carolina means a mustard-based sauce you will not find in Texas or Kansas City. Start with the dishes, because ordering well here matters more than picking the right restaurant. Shrimp and grits is the defining plate, usually around $28, and it is on nearly every serious menu in the city. She crab soup is the one you cannot get reliably outside the Lowcountry, running about $16. It is a cream soup enriched with crab roe, and it is the dish most worth ordering on your first night. Oysters are the third pillar. Raw on the half shell runs about $18, and roasted oysters around $20. The communal oyster roast is a real Lowcountry social tradition, and Bowen's Island is the long-standing venue for it. A Lowcountry boil, around $22, is the festive version. Shrimp and sausage and corn cooked together and tipped onto the table. Charleston red rice and Hoppin' John, both around $8 to $10, are the Gullah Geechee staples and the historical backbone of the cuisine. Pulled pork with that mustard-based sauce runs about $14 and is the barbecue benchmark to judge the rest against. On the lighter side, pimento cheese at around $9 is a regional fixture, and fried green tomatoes run about $13. Benny wafers are the historic snack, a sesame confection sold at the city market for more than 2 centuries at about $7. The Huguenot torte is the dessert that barely exists outside Charleston, around $9, with French Huguenot roots. Biscuits are their own institution here at about $4, and Callie's Hot Little Biscuit has the national reputation. Sweet tea at $3 is not optional. It is treated as the house wine of the South, and it appears on every table. Now for specific places, working from the highest reviewed spots in our data across the price tiers. At the value end, Hyman's Seafood is the most reviewed restaurant in the city by a wide margin, over 50,000 reviews at 4.9. It is a downtown seafood institution and runs about $20 to $30 for 2, which is remarkable for its location. Lewis Barbecue rates 4.8 from more than 8,000 reviews and is the barbecue stop most worth your time. Page's Okra Grill in Mount Pleasant rates 4.7 from 12,000 reviews for Southern home cooking in the same price band. Fleet Landing sits in a converted naval building on the waterfront, rating 4.6 from nearly 12,000 reviews. In the middle tier, Magnolia's rates 4.7 from over 5,000 reviews and runs roughly $30 to $80 for 2. It is the restaurant most credited with starting Charleston's modern dining era, and it remains a reliable introduction to refined Lowcountry cooking. Husk is the more talked about option, rating 4.5 at about $50 to $100 for 2. Its premise is strict. Nothing appears on the menu that is not grown or raised in the South. Church and Union occupies a converted church downtown and rates 4.4, spanning roughly $20 to $70 for 2. At the top end, Hall's Chop House rates 4.8 from nearly 7,000 reviews and starts around $100 for 2. It is a steakhouse rather than a Lowcountry restaurant, and it is the city's default special occasion booking. For brunch, which Charleston takes seriously, Miller's All Day rates 4.7 and runs $20 to $30 for 2. Hoogan's Porch is the historic alternative in a Victorian house, rating 4.3 from over 6,000 reviews. For oysters specifically, 167 Raw is the one local's name, rating 4.7, about 7 minutes walk from the center. Now, the single most important practical fact in this section, and the one that ruins the most trips. Popular Charleston restaurants take reservations 1 to 4 weeks in advance, especially on weekends and through the spring and fall peaks. If you are arriving without bookings and expecting to eat at Husk or Hall's Chop House on a Saturday, you will not. Book your 2 or 3 priority dinners before you book anything else about the trip. Casual spots still take walk-ins. Here is how a full eating day actually works, using the geography rather than a list. Start with breakfast at Miller's All Day on King Street, which opens early and sits within walking distance of most downtown hotels. Mid-morning, walk the city market for Ben wafers and pralines, which is the cheapest way to taste the historic end of the cuisine. For lunch, head to Hyman's near the market for she crab soup and fried seafood and expect a line at peak times. Spend the early afternoon in Cannonborough Elliott Borough off Upper King, which holds the densest cluster of independent coffee shops and small kitchens. In the late afternoon, cross to Shem Creek in Mount Pleasant for oysters at the water where the shrimp boats unload. For dinner, come back downtown to Magnolia's or Husk, both booked well ahead for the refined version of everything you ate earlier. If you want the local rather than the polished version, drive out to Bowen's Island for a roasted oyster night instead. On costs, a cheap meal runs about $15 per person and street-style food around $10. A mid-range dinner for 2 lands near $80 and fine dining runs about $120 per person. A local beer is around $6 and coffee about $5, which is roughly in line with other mid-sized U.S. cities. On dietary range, our data rates both vegetarian and vegan options good, which is better than the Southern stereotype suggests. Halal options are limited, and kosher is rare, so plan ahead if either applies to your trip. Charleston also has a strong brunch culture specifically, running from 10 to 2 and heavily booked on weekends. Charleston is not a cheap American city, and the gap between the tiers here is wider than in most places its size. At the budget end, plan on about $75 per person per day, and that number assumes real discipline. That covers a hostel dorm at $35, cheap meals around $15, free parks and beaches, and walking instead of transit. The moderate tier runs about $150 per person per day, and this is what most visitors actually spend. That is a mid-range hotel at $156 split between 2 people, 2 solid meals, and 1 paid attraction. The comfortable tier is around $250 per person per day, which buys an upscale room near $247, a fine dining dinner, and tours. Accommodation is the line item that dominates every tier, and it is where Charleston's prices run high for its size. Food is the second largest, and it is the one most likely to overshoot because the restaurants are good enough to tempt you upward. Transport is where Charleston is unusually cheap if you stay downtown. The free dash shuttle plus walking means a 3-day Peninsula trip can carry essentially no transport cost at all. Add a car, and that flips. A rental day at $55 plus $20 parking puts you at $75 before fuel. Attractions are moderate. The 2 headline paid sites, the African American Museum at $20 and the Yorktown at $28, are the biggest single tickets. Most of the outdoor attractions cost between nothing and $2, which is unusual and worth planning around. A realistic 4-day moderate trip for 2 people lands near $1,200 before flights. That is roughly $620 in lodging, $400 in food, and the remainder in attractions and local transport. Flights are the wild card. Our sampled fares run from $110 at the low end to over $1,400 at the high. Booking outside the March to May and September to October peaks is the single biggest lever on your total trip cost. One more note on these figures. Prices shift, and the hotel tiers in particular move with the season, so treat them as a snapshot. To put that in perspective, a typical day in Charleston runs about $150 versus about $120 in Knoxville and $200 in Miami, right about the middle among these cities. This is the section where the standard advice about Charleston and the actual weather data stop agreeing, so it is worth going month by month. The conventional line lists March through May and September through October as peak. The data supports most of that, but not all of it. Start with the 2 months that come out clearly best. April is the strongest month in the year on almost every measure. April averages a high near 76 Fahrenheit, about 24 Celsius, with lows around 62 Fahrenheit, roughly 16 Celsius. It carries 3 inches of rain across just 5 wet days, humidity of 70%, the lowest of any warm month, and the second most sunshine in the year. October is April's mirror image, running highs near 75 Fahrenheit, around 24 Celsius, with lows near 61 Fahrenheit, about 16 Celsius. Rainfall is 4 inches across 5 wet days, and humidity drops to 73% as the summer finally breaks. Now the exception. September is in almost every published list of Charleston's best months, and the numbers do not support it. September brings nearly 6 inches of rain, making it the third wettest month of the year after July and August. Humidity holds at 79%, essentially unchanged from August, and highs still run near 82 Fahrenheit, about 28 Celsius. It also sits inside the most active stretch of hurricane season. If you want fall in Charleston, you want the second half of October. The month nobody mentions is November, and on the data, it deserves a serious look. November is the driest month of the entire year, at under 3 inches of rain across only 4 wet days, the fewest of any month. Highs sit near 69 Fahrenheit, about 21 Celsius, which is cool for the beach but close to perfect for walking all day. Crowds have thinned by then, and hotel rates come off the autumn peak. It is the best value window in the year. Summer is the season to approach carefully, and July and August are the 2 months our data flags as worst. July runs highs of 88 Fahrenheit, about 31 Celsius, with lows that only fall to 78 Fahrenheit, roughly 25 Celsius. 9 wet days and close to 7 inches of rainfall make it the wettest month on the calendar. August is marginally cooler at 84 Fahrenheit, about 29 Celsius, but humidity peaks at 82%, the highest reading all year. That combination is the real issue. If you do come in summer, front-load your mornings and treat the middle of the day as indoor or beach time. Winter is mild and underrated. Expect the mid-50s Fahrenheit by day, around 12 Celsius, dropping close to freezing overnight. December and January are the quietest months, and almost everything stays open because Charleston has no true off-season shutdown. The trade-off is sunshine, lowest all year in December. On events, Charleston has a strong calendar, and several of these will change both prices and availability. The Southeastern Wildlife Exposition, known as SEWI, runs 3 days across downtown venues each February. It draws tens of thousands and fills hotels in what is otherwise the quietest stretch of the year, so it is a real window to plan around. Spoleto Festival USA is the marquee event, 17 days from late May into June, filling theaters and churches with opera, dance, theater, and chamber music. Piccolo Spoleto runs alongside it, the city-produced companion with hundreds of free and low-cost performances in parks and galleries. Those two together are the single biggest surge on the calendar. Book months ahead or deliberately avoid the window. The Cooper River Bridge Run each spring is one of the largest 10K road races in the country, crossing the Arthur Ravenel Jr. Bridge. Tens of thousands take part and it closes the bridge, so check the date before booking a Mount Pleasant hotel that weekend. The annual Wine and Food Festival brings celebrated chefs and winemakers together for 5 days of tastings, dinners, and demonstrations across the city. The Moja Arts Festival runs about 2 weeks each fall, celebrating African American and Caribbean heritage through visual arts, theater, dance, film, and music. In winter, the Holiday Festival of Lights runs nightly at James Island County Park from mid-November through the new year. One structural warning overrides all of this. Hurricane season runs June through November, overlapping the entire summer and the first half of the autumn shoulder. Serious disruption is not common in any given week, but travel insurance is worth more here than in most U.S. destinations. so the best window is the second half of October, with April a close second and November the value pick. Charleston is a domestic trip for most viewers, so payments, phones, and the rest are unremarkable. The card on screen carries those specifics. What actually trips people up here is local, so let us spend the time on that instead. Start with water, because it shapes this city more than any other single factor. We flagged the flood risk at the top of this guide. Here is what it means for an ordinary day of walking around. King tides and heavy rain can put standing water across downtown streets with no storm involved at all. It clears quickly, but it will reroute a walk, so check the forecast and do not assume a dry morning means dry sidewalks. The second local factor is heat combined with humidity, which is a different problem from heat alone. From June through September, the humidity sits between 76 and 82%, so the air does not cool in the shade. The UV index hits 8 through the summer, which is high, and there is very little tree cover on the main walking routes downtown. Third is the ground itself. Large parts of the historic district are cobblestone, brick, and uneven bluestone. This is the single most common packing mistake here, and it turns into a real problem by day 2. On safety, Charleston reads moderate rather than exceptional, scoring 58 out of 100 overall. Both petty and violent crime rate moderate in our data, which is normal for a U.S. city this size, but worth knowing. For solo female travelers, the picture is good, and the historic core, King Street, and the Battery are comfortable into the evening. The nightlife district on King Street is where to apply standard caution, with drink spiking rated a moderate risk on weekend nights. 2 local scams show up repeatedly: people soliciting cash for vague charities around King Street and the market, and unofficial parking attendants. Verify before you hand over money in either case, and use marked lots and garages rather than someone waving you into a space. For medical care, MUSC Health University Medical Center is the main hospital on Ashley Avenue, 1 to 2 miles from the historic center. It is a major academic medical center with full emergency services, so you are well covered here. One quiet local rule worth knowing: amplified music and outdoor noise are prohibited from 11 at night until 7 in the morning. Another is alcohol. South Carolina has a patchwork of local rules, and some counties and towns restrict sales, though Charleston itself is unrestricted. One unglamorous but useful fact: public restrooms downtown are limited in number, and our data rates their condition rough. Plan around cafes and museums rather than assuming you will find a public facility when you need one. On tipping, the U.S. norms apply in full: 15 to 20% at sit-down restaurants, $1 to $2 per drink at a bar. Figure 15 to 20% for taxis and rideshare, $1 to $2 per bag for hotel porters, and $5 to $10 per person for a group tour. Now packing, and Charleston needs a different bag than most U.S. city trips. For clothing, the priority is breathable and light, because here it is the humidity that does the damage rather than the temperature. Pack loose cotton or linen, a light rain jacket for the afternoon storms, and a wide-brimmed hat for the open stretches downtown. Add swimwear if the beaches are on your list, and one smarter outfit, because the better restaurants here do expect it. For footwear, this is where the trip is won or lost. Charleston's cobblestone and uneven bluestone punish thin soles and anything not already worn in. Bring shoes with real grip, sandals for the beach, and a pair you do not mind soaking if you visit between June and September. For gear and health, the list here is driven by the climate rather than the usual city trip checklist. Bring high SPF sunscreen and insect repellent, because mosquitoes are a real issue in the marsh-backed neighborhoods from late spring onward. Finally, the mistakes first-time visitors actually make here, because avoiding these matters more than any single attraction. The biggest is treating restaurant bookings as an afterthought. Popular places take reservations 1 to 4 weeks ahead, so book before you book anything else. The second is booking September as a fall trip. As we covered, it is the 3rd wettest month, with August-level humidity and peak hurricane risk. The third is a lodging mistake. Staying in North Charleston to save money puts you 16 miles out with poor bus service, and rideshare eats the savings. The fourth is scheduling. The International African American Museum closes on Mondays, and Friends of the Hunley opens only on weekends. The fifth is bringing a car you do not need. Downtown for 3 days, parking costs $20 daily to solve a problem walking already solved. On what to skip, Rainbow Row is the one to manage expectations about. It is a photograph, not an attraction, and 10 minutes covers it. Charleston is a small city with an unusually large amount packed into a walkable core, and that compactness is its real advantage. It is best for history-focused travelers who get a preserved colonial core plus the harbor forts and a serious reckoning with the slave trade. It is equally strong for food-focused visitors with a Lowcountry and Gullah Geechee tradition you cannot eat anywhere else. It works well for couples because the walkable historic core, the restaurant depth, and the harbor setting all point the same direction. Families do well here too, on the conditions set out earlier, that you are willing to drive across the bridge for the best of it. Who should think twice? If you want nightlife variety or a big city cultural calendar, Charleston is too small to deliver it. If you need reliable public transport, this is the wrong city for the reasons the transport section laid out. And if heat and humidity bother you, avoid the June through September window entirely rather than trying to work around it. On value, Charleston is not cheap for its size. Lodging runs high, and the food scene will tempt you well past your budget. But the 2 headline museum tickets are modest, the parks and beaches are close to free, and downtown transport can cost you nothing at all. The 4-day total we built earlier is fair for what the city delivers, and the cheap outdoor sites are what hold it down. Come in the second half of October or in April, book your restaurants weeks ahead, and skip the car if you are staying downtown. Do that, and Charleston is one of the strongest short trip destinations in the American South. That's our guide to Charleston, South Carolina. Everything mentioned is linked in the description below. If you are planning another trip, we have more guides waiting for you. And if you haven't yet, subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Thanks so much for watching.